Hello and welcome everybody to the Engineers RV channel. Today we're going to talk about selecting a solar panel for your boondocking adventures for your RV. Really, solar panels are not all made the same, and let's try this again. The adventure I had back in June really showed that more than anything. So I have a small collection of panels that I own. I'm going to talk about what the differences are and how to pick a panel. Of course, the first step in picking a solar panel is going to be to pick how many watts you need and what type. These are called suitcase panels because, well, they look like a suitcase when you fold them up, or portable panels like this. And of course, there's fixed panels that you can fix, like this 200-watt panel I have back here. And I like a combination of each. The ones on the RV that are fixed are very convenient. You pull up, they work. You don't have to think about them. But they tend to not be aimed perfectly. And so something like a suitcase panel like this, you can put it out. If you're parked in the shade, you can run a long cable and run this in the sun. And so I kind of like a combination of each. For simple trips, I just use what's on top. When I have a longer trip or I want more power, if I'm going to be running the microwave or electric appliances, charging batteries, I might want to have both. So they're both valid ways to do things. Of course, suitcase is often easier for people than installing something on your RV. But the first question, of course, is how many watts do you need? And it's really exciting times in panels because 5-10 years ago, I would tell people the panel isn't really going to charge your battery. You can't have enough panel for that. But it is going to slow down the amount of time and the amount that the battery depletes. That's really not true anymore. New panels are fantastic, and there's really a difference between different types of panels. I think one of the mistakes that people make is they go out and they buy the cheapest panel they can find that seems to fit their needs, and that's really a mistake. There's a huge difference. This panel up there will probably produce 4 times as much power as those panels down there for the same wattage. And that's a huge difference when you think about that. But anyway, the first question is, how much do you need? That's a hard question. Really, you should add up what you're using and maybe look up the wattage and do some math. I'm not going to get into how to do that here. Or use your battery, if your battery is a built-in BMS or a shunt, and figure out how much power you're using per day. And that'll help you figure things out. But a general rule of thumb is if you're just doing light things, you're using the lights, the water pump, maybe you're running the radio a little bit, and you have decent sun, a 200-watt panel will about keep up. If you're in a shady condition or you want to do a little bit more, maybe you want to run an inverter a little bit, charge some batteries, maybe you want to run the microwave or a coffee maker or something, then maybe more like 400 watts. And if you're really doing a lot, you're wanting to run a lot of electric things, you're wanting to charge batteries, chainsaws, power tools, now you're getting into 800 to 1200 watts. And if you want to run a air conditioner, you're going to need a more modern air conditioner. Generally, the ones that come with these RVs are not efficient enough. But if you're running like a Country Mod or a Cube or something like that, now you're getting to about 1200 watts of solar panel you need. So really the rule of thumb to kind of sum that up is 200 to 400 watts of panel is good for most people. For light boondocking adventures. A little more, a little less, depending on where you live, what kind of sun you get, and how much you're going to use. All right, let's talk about different types of panels. So I want to show you a few. We're going to start with this one, because this is a good example of what not to get. This was the stock panel that came on my R-Pod. It failed in about a year. It's absolute garbage, but it's really easy to see what's happening in this panel and to kind of show you things. So the first thing is, well, actually, let's talk about specs. There's really a couple of specs in panels. The first one is wattage, of course. We talk about 100-watt panels, 200-watt panels. The next spec is the voltage, VMP. That's the power point voltage or the V open circuit voltage. And there's my cat Bear checking the panels out. Hey, Bear. Anyway, and then beyond that, we get into things like how many diodes there are, how many bus bars there are, what the technology on the film is, what the actual technology of the panel is. So I'm going to start with this to kind of show you how to count some of those things. One of the first things is how many bus bars. So we'll count this. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bus bars. So 9 bus bars is okay. You're going to see on older panels, like this is a very old panel I have back here. And it's a little harder to see the individual cells, but you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bus bars. So much less. I really think 9's about the minimum. That panel up there is 16. I think this one is close to 16. This one might be 12. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, actually. So 9's kind of the minimum you want to get today, but the quality stuff is all 12 to 16. The more bus bars, the more efficient the panel is going to be, so it's definitely a spec you want to look at. The next thing is the number of cells, and a lot of panel manufacturers are not good at telling you what this is, but you get a clue by looking at the voltage. You can assume about 0.6 volts per cell. So if we look at this, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 32 cells. And that means that we're going to have a voltage of 32 times 0.6, whatever that is, somewhere around 18, 20 volts. The higher the voltage, the less you're going to drop down the wire. So the higher the voltage panel, the better. This, I believe, is a 72 panel cell. You can kind of count 1, 2, 3. Well, we won't count it all on here. But anyway, you get an idea. So this is about a 45 volt panel. That's about a 20 volt panel. The next thing you really want to think about is the coating. And this is really what makes or breaks it. This is, again, a really cheap panel. You can see this is a slick, shiny coating. It's called PET, I believe, PET. And then this is, the problem with this is that sun will come and bounce right off of it. It's reflective, and so not all the sun gets to the panel. The other problem is it degrades. It's good for about 1 year to 3 years tops, and the panel's bad. So and a lot of cheap panels have this PET coating. I'll show you another cheap one. This is a brand, you might recognize it because it's got a very characteristic, do not buy this brand. This panel's about 1 year old and it's done for, it's dead. It's rotted out completely. So it's definitely a case of you get what you pay for. But this is also that shiny coating. Now this is a very old panel. It's about 10 years old, but it was absolutely top of the line for its day. And you can see there's like a bubble coating. You can almost see a texture in there. This panel too also has that coating. And I believe this is called EFTE or something like that. These panels have it. Now this does a lot of things. One thing is it's a micro prism. So when sun comes from an angle, it'll bend it and go straight down. It also keeps sun that does bounce off. If it bounces back up, it comes back down on the panel. It's got like a 15 to 25 year life as opposed to 1 to 3 years for the other kind. So absolutely an upgrade, going to make your panels last longer. But more importantly, it means that if you're not parked perfectly and sun is coming from an angle, this type of a panel is just not going to work because the sun's going to hit at an angle and it's going to bounce right off. Whereas this kind of panel, the sun's going to come from an angle and the microprisms are going to reflect the light right back down on the panel. So huge, huge difference between those two coatings. You really do want to pay for the extra coating. So let's talk beyond that. There's two other specs that you want to look for. And that is the type of panel. Now there's many different types of technologies. The two you're going to hear about the most is P technology, also sometimes called PERC, P-E-R-C, or P technology. And that was kind of the standard up until about 2 years ago. Yes, there are other types. Actually, we'll talk about some older types. There's amorphous, which was what was really popular 20 years ago. Up until about 3 years ago, there was also a thing, I believe it's called CGIS or CIGS. And that was a very thick, that was a very inefficient technology. It was popular for RVs because you couldn't break it. You could walk on it. It's very popular on boats as well. You just can't damage it. The PERC panels or the P panels are easy to damage. So the CGIS or whatever it was called was popular because you couldn't damage it. It also did really good in bad light, much better than PERC did in bad light. And so it's popular, but it's huge. A 200 watt panel in that would be almost twice the size as a modern N panel. So it's pretty much obsolete as of this point. But that is the other type of technology. There's also something called black contact. That's a new emerging technology. I do not have an example of that here. But that's a new emerging technology. It's very good. You will not see the bus bars on it. It's a black surface front. So they sometimes call it black back or back contact. And then there's some newer technologies I won't get into. They're really 1 year to 3 years away from being where we're seeing them on the consumer market. So I'm not going to cover them yet. But this is an example of about a 3-4 year old technology. This was a 400 watt, 45 volt panel. And it was PERC. You can see it's got the nicer surface on it. Absolutely was the best money could buy 3-4 years ago. We've now moved to the newest technology, and that's what I have up here. It's called N technology or TopCon technology, and there's many advantages to the N technology. It's smaller, it works in a wider range of light, it works with off-angle light better. High temperature does not cause it to lose performance like this does. And the other thing that this particular N technology, and this is something I really think for RVs you need to think about, is the number of diodes. So a typical panel like this has 1 or 2 diodes. If you get shade on one of these cells, you're going to lose half the panel. So if I shade, that's why they had 4 panels here. So if I shade one of these cells, I'm going to lose maybe 50% of my power. Now on this panel, there's 54 cells, and there's a diode every other cell. So if I shade one cell, I lose, 1/27th of my power, as opposed to 1/3 of my power. And so the diode matrix is really important. There's not a whole lot of brands that have that. This is a Bourge RV. I believe Renogy has that in their Shadow Flex. It's kind of an emerging technology. I think it's extremely important, mandatory really. And let's talk about that for a little bit. So this is an N panel with a lot of diodes and the nice surface. Absolutely 2026 top of the line emerging technology. This is a 3-year-old top of the line PERC panel. In a test this year, I had this positioned perfectly, aimed perfectly at the sun at the right angle, everything ideal. I had these where the RV was parked. It was sort of the right direction, but not ideal. And in okay sun, I was getting maybe 60-70% of the rated power. So out of 400 watts, I was getting, 60-70% of that out of this. On this, I was getting 90 to 100% of the rated power out of it. So, that's 30% more power, a lighter panel, better panel. So that's just an example. A panel like this, I was never able to get more than 20-25% of the rated power out of it. This one, maybe I was able to get 60-70. This one, I was maybe able to get 80%, 75-80% of the rated power. So that's really a difference. When you think about a panel like this can only get, in ideal settings, 60-70-80% of the power, and in less than ideal, I'm getting near 100% of the power. Really quite an amazing thing. So this year, I have 500 watts of this. I have 200 on the back, and actually, we'll just show you. We'll show you a little bit more what this looks like. And I'm getting near the time limit for YouTube, so I may have to stop this video shortly and do a part 2. But here I have 3 100 watts. I've taped them with VHB tape, and I've used a Turnabond tape around the side, merged them together, come through. So I have 300 watts here, 200 watts here. As you can tell, really only half of it's ever going to get pointed at the sun right, because this is pointed one way and that's pointed the other way. So out of this array in okay sun, I was pretty regularly getting 400 to 425 watts. Whereas this, I was, I had it pointed perfectly, and I would be lucky to get much over 300, 400, or 300, 350 watts out of it. So that's kind of the difference. It's a little bit about selecting panels, knowing what you want. Again, you really want to look for N technology. You want to look for the unsmooth coat, not the shiny coat. You want to look for diodes in there, high voltage, higher voltage panels, and you really want to get the N or the TopCon technology. It's going to be lighter weight, work better. Since I'm running out of time, I'm just going to cover one more thing, and that's hooking it up. A lot of RVs come with PWM controllers. They're cheap, they're garbage. If you have a panel like this with 36 cells, you're going to be an 18-20 volt panel. You can get away with PWM. But if you have a higher voltage panel, which I really encourage, you're going to lose less power in the wire, but you're going to need an MPPT controller. And I'll show you quickly what I did. I have 2 controllers. I have my main controller for what's on the roof, and I have a second controller for the suitcase panel. The second one's covered up, but to show you, I have a Rich Solar flush mount, and I just pulled the old one out, put a new one in. This is an MPPT controller. It'll show me how much power I'm giving every day. It has an app. Absolutely love this controller. There definitely is a difference in quality. One thing about MPPT and high voltage is you can charge earlier in the morning, later at night, because you're getting, if you have a 45 volt panel and you've lost 20% of it, because there's a little bit of shade, you're fine. If you have a 20 volt panel and you've lost 20% of it, you're below the battery voltage and you can't do anything. This is a shout out to the JungTech brand, the JungTech Shunt, which tells me how much power I'm using, gives me an idea where my batteries are. Absolutely great. So how do I hook these up? Let's talk a little bit about connectors really quick for the few minutes we have left. This is called an SAE connector. It's the old connector. I do not recommend these connectors, but it is what you'll see on older RVs. Sometimes they call it Go Power, I believe. It has a lot of faults. One of them is it's easy to get backwards and blow things up. It's also really not good for over 100 watts. It'll start melting down easily. So the other connector you're going to see is MC4s, and that's what's on the back of quality panels. It's a good connector. It's waterproof, but it's hard to connect and disconnect. And this is a 10 gauge cord. I really recommend buying quality wire, 10 gauge, so you don't lose power in there. And what I do is I adapt everything to what's called a Anderson 45. So you see I just bought an adapter that adapts my MC4 to the Anderson, and I put a little port on the side here. There's my Anderson connector right there, and that's how I charge. You also see something called an Anderson SB50. It's a bigger connector. That's becoming the standard. Let's see if I can show you one of those really quick. Hopefully I can still upload this video. It's over 15 minutes. The standard is becoming these SB50 Andersons. They're great connectors. They're real powerful, but they're kind of bulky. So they're not a bad connector to adapt to. They're definitely better than the 45, but they are a little bulky. Anyway, that's a quick little lesson in what's out there for solar panels and how to pick a panel. Again, something in the 200 to 400 watts. I had 900 watts going here this year, and I had all the power I could use. Ran my lights, ran my radio, ran my water pump. I was charging people's jackeries. I was charging tool batteries, chainsaw batteries. I was running the microwave. I was cooking cinnamon rolls in the electric oven, electric hot water heater. Really, with 900 watts, 400 here, 500 up there, I had all the power I could possibly use. I really did good. Even on shady days, I was doing all right. On a really shady day, I wasn't quite catching up, but I was coming close. So anyway, a little lesson in picking up panels. Do not go cheap on panels. Look for something good. Really, the difference between something junk like that and something quality like that is 4 times the power for the same. You know, if you have a 200 watt version of that, you might get 25, 35 watts out of it. If you have a 200 watt like that, you might get more than 200 watts out of it. Something a little bit older like PERC, you're going to lose maybe 20%. So it's definitely worth paying a little bit more. Anyway, thanks for watching my channel. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. Thanks a lot, everybody.